right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share how my reading has been going, including what I finished, what I've started, and anything interesting about what I'm carrying over week to week. And generally speaking, there is always a lot of carryover week to week, and that has really been the theme for a long time. And this is actually now we're in the last week of the long extended currently reading challenge. I have been working towards finishing off what's on my currently reading pretty much all year. At the beginning of the year, I started with 30 titles, and then I had a round of the currently reading in May, and I reduced that to, actually, I don't remember off the top of my head. I got a fair amount read. I read 10 titles that month, so I finished 10 titles that month. But since then, my goal has been to finish everything that I had started from May or before by Halloween, because Halloween is when or the end of October is when I want all of my goals completed for the year, because December is holiday and November is sort of like holiday planning, and I just genuinely don't have the energy to commit to a project or a challenge at that time. I tried a couple years ago to do a currently reading round in October and November, and it was or maybe it was September, October, I don't know, but it was too long to do it for 2 months. Guess what I've been doing for the past 2 months? And anyway, I didn't mean to go down that road. So that's definitely been my focus for the past 2 months in particular, but actually ever since the May Reading Challenge completed, I have just been actively working towards the remaining titles again and again, and just persistently working on those titles, because I'm like, this has been a long time for some of these works. I mean, I think the longest is 6 years, and I'm like, it's just time. I want to clear the decks. I wanted a fresh start. I just want everything done by Halloween and to start anew, and so I just really worked towards that. And then where we left off last week, I was down to 3 remaining titles. So let's see how I did. First up, I did finish The Iron Warrior Returns by Michelle Willingham. This is a historical romance, a medieval historical romance. I've talked about it a fair amount of times before. It follows, it's a male-female romance, and it follows sort of, there's actually 4 people, 2 half-brothers and a brother and sister, that are kidnapped and taken away from the place where they were living. And the male lead, it's his, he's the heir to that area, and the woman is, well, she's a girl when they're kidnapped. But she more recently started living there. But they escape, and then they sort of live together for a couple of years, and then the guy wants to take back the lands that were his father's, but they were given to a new lord, and that lord is quite a tyrant. So yeah, so this one was a bit tougher, I will admit. There were some scenes that were really quite, for me, a little surprising in terms of their level of violence that I don't actually expect in romance, even historical romance, but it does actually come up a fair amount in historical romance. I don't know. I guess the thing is, I don't read Regency romances, so I read like all of the other romances, including medieval and Viking, and there can be, but I actually find in medieval, it's a little bit more, maybe that makes sense because it's the medieval time, but time period. So anyway, but I did end up finishing it. I had about 90 pages left. I was a little surprised by some of the choices, I will admit to that, but it is the first in a 3 or 4 part series, so I can see where things are going because I know how romance series works. But I was a little surprised at some of the choices, and some of the decisions and stuff like that. The character choices, and there's one historical thing I'm like, I should just double check which person that is, because that's actually a historical figure, and I think I might be meshing a couple of people together. And so but I did finish it, and I'm really happy that I finished it. I started it in February, so it's one of the ones from this year that was included, that I added into this challenge to sort of finish things off, because I have read a lot of Michelle Willingham work, and she's one of the authors that I do just want to read all of her work. So, but yeah, I started it in February, but didn't get back to it. I haven't been reading as much romance this year, but I'm hoping to get back to it. But I'm not gonna talk about the future stuff until I finish up the past or / current stuff. So staying in the current, next up, so I actually finished that on Saturday, and I do my Sunday reading reset on Sundays. And then on Sunday, I decided with 50 pages left, I decided to just go for it and work on finishing Tess of the Dubervilles by Thomas Hardy. And I can say I did. I finished it. I just read it all in one go. I don't normally read that amount of pages from one work, especially a classic, in one go. But I'm just like, with 50 pages, I just wanted to be done. And I had the whole final section. It's in seven or eight sections. And I had the whole final section. And I'm like, I have not enjoyed this book, like, at all. At all. And I didn't end up liking it in the end. And I liked Far From the Madding Crowd better. And I didn't think that was going to be the case, because I didn't really love that one either. Both of them are on my Shannon Reads Those Books exploration, which is one of my longest running challenges or lists that I'm working on, that I'm going to be really thinking about how to proceed in the future about that. But again, that's a future thought. And I did start this back in 2020. So, and I can't remember why I started it, but it was for either a read along or a readathon or a reading challenge or something. And it was on my those books exploration list. So I said, why not? But it's like 600 pages can't be a why not anymore. I think I know that now. No. 300 and under, maybe. 200 and under, sure. 600 pages, no. Because this took me like 3 years to read, and I didn't enjoy it. And that wasn't consistent reading. Like, I would read it now and then. I would read it when the Currently Reading Challenge told me to do it. But the reason why I stuck with it was I am genuinely curious to what it is that people like about this work, because people do like this work, and I still don't get it. Like, I still don't understand what's the draw beyond. I do feel like the character of Tess is desired, but it is very woe is me, and it is very, I feel like there's a lot of sort of like unjust things that happen, and so I don't know, maybe all of that speaks to people. I'm going to read the Wikipedia page, and I want to read a couple of reviews just to sort of get a sense of what it is that people get from this work, because I really didn't. I didn't enjoy it. I felt that her character was very inactive. And it felt very, as I think I said, as it felt very woe is me. Like, and not that she's in the best of circumstances, but I just felt she was so inactive, and there were so many moments where I'm just like, and also I will say people did not listen to her. When she did say things, people did not listen to her, and that is frustrating, and maybe people relate to that. I'm not sure. Anyway, I did finish it. I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy the ending, like, at all. Like, I was like, what? And then just more, and I'm like, so, but I don't do spoilers, so I'm not going to talk about that. So, but I did finish it, but I really will, I don't imagine I will read another Thomas Hardy, because those are both, like, I felt lukewarm about Far From the Madding Crowd. The writing is beautiful, and often the writing in this one is beautiful too, especially the descriptions of the sort of like landscape and nature and stuff like that. But there's some things that just had me rolling my eyes, and it just feels like, yeah, that's a man trying to write about what it's like to be a woman. And I'm feeling that there's a disconnect here. And also there was some of the gender stuff and sexism was just, I know it was written a long time ago, but still, this is very frustrating. So that was 2 of the 3, and that leaves one final title, which is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book in the Shades of Magic series. I thought it was called something else. And I finished it. it. I can't quite believe it, but I did. I finished it. And in that, I finished everything. I finished all of the books that I set out to read, not only in May and from May, but also January, and also technically last January. I wanted to finish all of the books that I carried forward with me last year. I started this in 2017. 2017. Now, it was a lapsed buddy read, so I just put it to the side, and I was just like, okay, when we get back to it, we can get back to it. But then this, I think last month I checked in with my buddy, and I'm like, do you still want to read this together? And if they said yes, I would have been like, fine, and then I just wouldn't have included it in the challenge, because buddy reads have their own rules and energy and timelines, and I don't hold anything on my currently reading. I never on my currently reading hold a buddy read, because it has its own schedule. But with this one, it's been 6 years. So I'm like if you want to, we can still read it together. But they said to go ahead. So I did. And I finished this way faster than I would ever read a 400-page fantasy novel. I read it in just under 3 weeks. Like hundreds of pages on some days, maybe not, hundreds of pages a week for sure. And I tend to read sort of like 15 minutes per title, and I read sort of 3 to 5 titles. That's sort of how I read. And that came out of the first currently reading challenge, and it's just stuck. So for me, reading long spans of time with the same work is not how I generally read, and generally it's not how I like to read. But with this one, I just need one. I had to, because it's all I had left. Like, it was literally the only title in the challenge I had left. I have a couple other things on my currently reading, which I'll get to in a sec. But like, for the books for this challenge, I read it. So, and I will say, I talked about it a little bit last week. So this is like classic fantasy with a bit of a spin. It does have a bit of a real world like location to it, which I was surprised at. And I did enjoy it. I liked the characters, especially the primary characters, but there were some really tough things in this one. There were some, like, the antagonist or the villains were really horrible, and I think I mentioned this before, they really enjoyed tormenting and harming people, like actively enjoyed it, like it was part of how, like, they liked to have power over people. And power is a theme in the story, and magic and power, and the sort of ratio of how much magic and stuff like that. They don't actually use the word ratio, but there are examples of where magic is very present, it's sort of present, and it's almost not present, and stuff like that. So I think that's fair to say that the amount of power and the amount of magic and that kind of stuff, and seeing those in contrast to each other is all part of that. But it really is, generally speaking, more like an adventure story, of something, and the magic was interesting. I felt complicated about some of the things, but I liked the primary characters. I did like the story. I liked the adventurous spirit. There were some pretty harsh things in this one, that, especially one that there was one that I found very disturbing, and then there was one that I was just very surprised that they went there. Like, I was just like, I had to finish the book, so I didn't go back and read the scene. But normally, I think I did go back and skim it again. Because I'm like, did that person just do that? And I was very surprised. But anyway, that's might be a little bit more about the character might have been just a little more gray in terms of that, I thought. But they're presented as gray, so maybe, I don't know. Maybe I need to think about that a little bit more. Anyway, but overall, I did enjoy it. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. I'm not even thinking about really that right now, because mostly the goal has been to finish this, which I did. And I can't, like, as I said, I can't quite believe I did it. Like, at the beginning of the week, where was I? I still had 130 pages left. So I actually made significant progress last week, because 130 pages is a bit more. When I get to 100 pages or less, I feel like, okay, I'm going to finish this book. But last week, I was very committed to making sure I got in my reading even on the days where it was harder to do that, and I did even read on the days that I don't normally read. So obviously it makes a difference, because I thought it would be right down to the wire. I thought it might go into next week, the beginning of next week, but I really wanted to finish, not only for Halloween, but I really did want to finish so that I could be done before filming my Friday reads and then call it complete. And I guess I figured out the math well, because here we are, and I actually did it. It's weird, because I'm like, on one hand, I'm like so happy because I've been trying to do this for months, like literally, like ever since May. I think June and July I was a little more flexible on like starting a couple of new things and whatever. But generally speaking, for like September and October, without question, this is what I read. I had some buddy reads here and there, and I read some like kids books and comics and manga, but I didn't start any new novels. I almost didn't start any new nonfiction. I have 13 pages left of learning to draw, drawing to learn. But even over the past 2 weeks, I wouldn't touch this. I'm like, it's going to take me 10 minutes to finish this. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I have other titles that I need to finish. So, and I did. I just really prioritized them. And it's weird, because it's like, I am really, really happy. But I'm also like, this took a lot of effort, a lot of consistent effort over not only these past 2 months, but ever since May. And then, you know, all of the rounds of the currently reading, which I find a fun challenge and experience just to do. But I do kind of like, now I'm kind of sitting with like, what do I do next a little bit? And I know it's not time to think about that. I know the most important thing now is, one, celebrate the win, because like, this is a huge win. Like, I've really been working on this for years, and also reflect back on not only the experience of working on it, but also like, what do I want from my reading? Because why I wanted to get to 0, and I'm at 4, but one of them is but my currently reading is now, like, once I clear everything off, and I clear off Goodreads on Saturdays, once I clear it off, it'll be 4. I don't know if I've ever had it at 4. Like, it's been many, many years since it's been under 10. So, like, I started the year with 30 last year, and usually when the currently reading rounds start, it's closer to 30. So to be at 4, I'm just like, and I do have a couple of buddy reads coming up, so I know I'm going to be starting new things. And I know I learned a lot doing the TBR jars. Was that 2 years ago? Where I picked 4 titles and then I worked on them till I was done, and then I picked a new 4 titles. That system did not work, but there were elements of it that did work, including, I do know that now I have sort of my 4 different sort of big bucket genres that I enjoy and or read from. It sounds a bit weird. So, which are speculative fiction. So it's any kind of speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy, and then actual speculative fiction, romance. And then the subgenres that I enjoy most are paranormal and historical. Some contemporary, but to be honest, not a lot, but I do read some. And then realistic fiction. So that's everything else. Literary fiction. I don't love that term, but people know what it is. Canadian fiction, contemporary fiction, which I don't love. So Canadian fiction, but yeah, anything realistic. There's those 3, and then nonfiction. I love nonfiction, and so for me, I like to read from those sort of big buckets, and I think that is really sort of, and I don't like to read more than one book from the same genre at a time. So if I have 1 of those or 3 of those and 2 nonfiction, for me, that's a really good, consistent sort of like week to week TBR. But starting 4 things at the same time doesn't work. So I am going to be trying, like right now, I'm going to really try not to overthink. I don't think I'm being successful at that, but I do feel like it's good to reflect back on not only the experience of the challenge, but also what do I want from my reading from here on in? Because I've spent a lot of time not only on this project, but like on reading and making lists and with my spreadsheets and like and actively seeking out titles and doing videos and I think it's a good time to be like, well, what is it that I want here? Like, how do I want to engage? Because I think I'm going to read. I'm not. I read every day. Like I have for years, and that's a habit I don't plan on not having. But I think it's a good time to think on what do I want. And the question is right now, I don't know. And I think it's totally fine to not know. It really is. I'm a little surprised at how quickly people can reflect back on an experience. For me, I need to be outside of the experience for at least a while. And for me, it's less than 24 hours that I finished the last title. So I am nowhere near that. And it's like, I collect my thoughts and I just put in my spreadsheet, on my reading spreadsheet, on my planning tab. I have one like after, so it's like, January, February, blah, blah, blah. But then after all that, I have one called noticing. And anytime I have a thought or a reflection or a wondering or an idea of something I could do, or more like, oh, wow, I'm noticing I'm feeling a lot of stress when I have more than X amount of books I'm currently reading, or I'm feeling like, I can't think of any, like because it's not about outside pressure. It's about, because all of the examples I can think of are like outside pressure, but I'm like, what am I, like, I'm feeling like I'm not reading a lot of romance, or I'm not enjoying the romance I'm reading. What's going on here? And so that can help me to try and form, like, do I want to go back to authors I really, or not go back to, but yeah, read only authors I've already enjoyed. Try different genres. Try shorter works. Look up reviews for people, or for, I don't know, the subgenres I'm interested in. Ask for direct recommendations. I'm not going to actually do any of those things, but it's just like, it just gives me a place to where, when I have the thought, I can put it. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that in a Keep document or in a journal. But so for me, I do have a capture device for noticing along the way. And I also do that if I have a particular project that I'm working on, like during the rounds of currently reading or during the rounds of doing the TBR jars. I'll do that so I can reflect back on the project, because I do feel like the TBR jars, as a whole, I felt that the project was really stressful and was kind of a fail, but I learned so much from it, especially that reading the same 4 books for 4 weeks in a row, didn't like it at all. Like, it was just having the same, it's like having the same, like, yeah, it really, but it could have been, if I staggered the weeks that I started things, I think it would have been much better and much more reading experience. And now I know that one of the things that I like to do is every week I like to start something, and every week I like to finish something. And if you're at the currently reading of not 30, that there's no problem there, because you're always starting and finishing something. And then if you notice you can't finish anything, well, then maybe that week don't start anything. So, but also I don't feel like, although this was a challenge to get down to finishing these titles, I don't feel like I always want my currently reading to be 0. That's never been my goal. Like, I have, and also I still have 4, so it would have been a fail. But but I have like sort of my 20 categories that of genres and subgenres and different types of reading engagement, that for me, as long as I don't have more than one of those 20 categories, I'm fine. It's sort of an expanded version of the 4 big buckets, but then also allowing for buddy reads, also allowing for kids books, manga, graphic novels and comics, and an audiobook, and multiples in each of those 4 big buckets, because like I'm always going to be reading nonfiction art books. I'm always going to be reading memoirs. So there's some things that even predate coming up with individual challenges. So obviously I'm thinking, even though I'm saying I'm not going to think about any of this, but obviously I am thinking about this, but it is something I think about a lot. And then that's also something too. How much time do I want to spend thinking about this? Creating challenge, updating my spreadsheet. I got to tell you, updating my spreadsheet, it takes a fair amount of time. Maybe I don't, well, I can't even think of not. I can't even think of not keeping records like at all. That's too far. But do I want to simplify? What's important? Do I need all of the hundreds? Okay, it's probably not hundreds of tabs, but like, do I need all of the different tabs? I don't know the answer to that, but this is a really good time for me to ask those questions. I actually didn't even, at the end of September, I didn't even look at how my September goals went, because I didn't want to have any distractions in October, because this is the win. Regardless of if I've met any of my other annual goals, this was more important. I still would like to, but I can tell him already, like, yeah, but if I read Beowulf, I will have finished my Read Macbeth and Beowulf, and if I do one more of these, I will have finished that. I'm like, no, this is the win. This is the win. And I can very much get focused on the next thing, because it's just, but I think I really want to celebrate that I did this, and I think it's I kind of wish I had I had like a goal in mind, but for me, I'm an accomplishment or an achievement oriented person, so achieving the goal is enough. I don't need to like get like something. And also, like, as an adult, I feel sometimes like I don't feel like it's much of a draw if I say like whatever, like I can buy some books. I'm like, I can buy books anyway if I want to and I have the money for it. So I have yet to been able to find a sort of what's that called, not a surprise, like a prize reward, because I'm like, I'm just rewarding myself, and and there's nothing wrong with that, and if it is a motivator, I totally support that. But for me, I haven't been able to find a way to have that be the motivation. But getting the thing done, coloring in the pages, that's motivation enough for me. So, and mostly I kind of just feel like I don't want to get in this situation again. But I know that, like, but what does that even mean? Does that mean more than 20 books? Does that mean at 21 I should be stressed or worried? I mean, I don't want to know. Like, no, I don't want that. Anyway, as I said, I'm still in it. It's still very present, so I don't know the answers to any of these questions, but I do feel like it'll be very valuable to give myself the time to think about that, and to think about some of the projects and challenges that I've set myself, that I like Those Books exploration, which is coming up to its 10-year anniversary next year. I started it in 2014, and I think about all of the books that I read throughout that exploration, and I've never committed to reading everything on that list, nor some of the list maybe that I work on, but that one, no. And Tess of the Dubervilles, I think, was my 62nd book that I've read for the Those Books exploration. And I've added more challenges as the years have gone on. And like my sci-fi, fantasy, and weird exploration, Station 11 was, I think, the 25th title that I read for that. And I started that in 2017. And like so many of these challenges, I'm super excited at the beginning and I make major progress, and then over time, less and less. And then over time, I have more and more challenges. And like when I'm working on one challenge, I might read 20 titles. But if I have 20 challenges, I might read one title for each, which is not as much progress. There's some crossover. Some titles are on lots of the lists. But then also, do I want to work with reading from lists anymore? Do I want to make my own lists? Like when you're working with someone else's list, they're curating what you're reading. So it's a great entry point, but like over time, sometimes I feel like maybe it's more valuable just to be inspired by a list as opposed to want to read the whole list. I am a completionist. I am accomplishment oriented. I like getting to 100%. So for me, it's sometimes hard to pull back. But even my Those Books list and my sci-fi, fantasy, and weird exploration list, those are lists that I cobbled together from other lists. So it's not one list I'm referring to, it's multiple lists I'm referring to. Anyway, so I could obviously talk about this like a lot. But I mean, mostly I'm just super excited that I got there. I only have one other finish this week, I think, that I'd like to share. And I absolutely love this so much. And it was volume 6 of Wandance by Coffee. This is a manga that follows a guy who he joins the school's dance team, and they do like hip-hop dance and house, and there's competitions, and like, there's the people outside of the school that also dance and stuff like that. And this volume was so good. It was sort of a carryover from volume 5, and I definitely now really want to read volume 7 because it does carry over again. But now I'm up to date with what the library has, and I believe what's the next one has been, I don't know if it's been translated yet or it's being translated this month, so I hope that my library gets it soon. It has been one of my favorites this year, and there's just one thing that they've said a couple of times. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But generally speaking, I love it, and how they talk about the different music styles and dance styles and the culture of dance battles and competition and understanding music and how you express that through the body. I mean, it's been a huge win. I've loved it so much. And so one of the only titles that I'm still not finished is Diary of an 8-Bit Warrior. I have how many pages left I have? 47. My goodness. And I've read it every week for the past 5 or 6 weeks, so maybe this weekend I will finish it. But I'm not terribly worried about it. It's just like, it's so funny. It's this kid's graphic novel based on Minecraft, and I'm like, I just can't finish it. But that's because I prioritized everything else, and that is fine. So there we have it. This has been obviously a long, rambly one. Thank you for being with me along the journey. Thank you to everyone, especially last week with the huge enthusiasm for finishing Outline Alphabets. I honestly think that was the toughest book to finish because it wasn't reading, it was actually doing something else. And I imagine if I, other than Les Mis, it took the most amount of time out of all of the books that I've done for all of the iterations of the Currently Reading Challenge, whether it was a May round or the past several months. That Outline Alphabets was a lot. It was a lot. And I think when I finished that, then I felt like I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. That was the big win. And I think that was a good choice to pick what was the toughest thing and get that done. And that gave me the motivation to feel like, all right, we're in it. We're going to do it. And we did it. So thank you for everyone who's been here on the journey. I will continue to do videos, of course. I do plan on doing a Friday Reads next week. As I mentioned, I do have some buddy reads. Maybe I will have some more thoughts or insights, and it'll be another long rambly one. Maybe I won't. Honestly, I am looking forward to playing a lot of World of Warcraft, watching a lot of TV, reading a lot of manga and kids books, and not really worrying about my reading at all. I just want to have some fun and be a little less structured, but not get myself into trouble by reading a bunch of stuff, by starting a bunch of stuff. I just want to be a little more just loose and just enjoy things, and I think that's totally fair after a big challenge like this. I will have a TV video, a video about TV up again on the weekend. Last week I talked about some of the spring summer shows that I watched that were aired live, and this week I have some that were sort of more fall, winter, spring that I watched during that season. So there will be some more TV stuff, and then I should be back next week for Friday Reads. Who knows what I will read? Maybe I will have to redo my intro of what I say, of what my Friday Reads are about, or maybe things will stay the same. Who knows? Only time will tell. So thank you again to everyone who, well, especially if you stayed all this way to the end of the video and has been a part of this journey at any particular stage of it. It has been quite a long road, and I'm really glad that I got here and have cleared the decks and have open blank slate for the future, and we'll see where things go. So there we go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back with another video soon. Take care.